Welcome to Not the Podcast You Deserve. We are joined tonight by another guest host who we loosely are related to. Welcome Alan Crawford to the podcast, everybody.
I have questions on loosely related.
I mean, it's unconfirmed. I mean, you can barely see the resemblance.
Between
Kyle,
me and him, maybe, but like,
can you edit in applause at that point when we say his name?
Seems like you're asking a lot out of me.
Do you have that capability?
Seems like you're asking too much.
Come on, you're the implementer. You're the implementer. You know how to do.
We're not going to need a lot of applause tonight, but we are going to need a lot of tissues because tonight we're talking about the saddest movie deaths in cinema. We painstakingly, and I emphasize painstakingly, went through our lists to bring you the refined top 15 saddest movie deaths in all of cinema. Before we get into that, we have a lot of honorable mentions, so I'd like to present to the floor a little time for you to maybe wave goodbye to some of the deaths that you saw, lay some flowers on their graves, if you will. Alan, you had a couple of good ones on your list for sure.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate it. Hopefully, I add a little bit of color to tonight's festivities. But yeah,
long-time fan, first-time host.
Long-time fan, first-time host. Have written in before though.
That is true.
Yeah.
Second only to Dale, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, congratulations, by the way. Should mention. I mean, season 2. Way to go, guys. I mean, wow, it's quite the accomplishment.
They said we couldn't do it. No, they said we shouldn't do it.
That's what it was. It was that one. Yeah.
But you said no.
But we said no.
You stick it to the man. Hey, you know what? Your fans out there need you, and I appreciate that. So this is great. Hey, good topic tonight. It really did have me diving deep a little bit into the cinematic chest of things that make you all the feels. And yeah, I'm sad. There were a couple that I felt pretty good about that did not even scratch the list of others, and that's okay. And one I got to throw out there because I don't even know if people know about this one, because maybe this one I'm not that much older than y'all, but have you guys seen Dante's Peak? Pierce Brosnan.
I have seen it. It's been many years.
Okay. So the premise of this movie is not hard. There's a mountain. Turns out it's a volcano, and only Pierce Brosnan can save the village. That's it. He's a volcanologist, and as it turns out, volcanologists can't stop volcanoes. All they can do is shoo people along a little faster.
They can just point and go, I know that is a volcano.
I know better. So that's basically what the whole movie is. But it's like mid-90s deal. But there's this terrible scene in this movie where grandma lives up on the mountain, and she won't come down. She's like, I've lived on this mountain my whole life. I'm going to die on this mountain. Well, spoiler alert.
But she makes it out alive at the end.
Yeah, let me tell you what happens there. So basically, they get in a motorboat, the whole family, and they're trying to get across this lake that's slowly turning into a liquid pile of lava, and the motor dies because it turns out that doesn't do super well in lava acid-like fields. And they're right at the shore. But
then they make it out.
They're not going to make it. And grandma hops out of the boat and pushes the boat to the shore. She's screaming.
Totally counteracting the entire reason they went up there in the first
place. Correct.
Hmm.
So basically, we'll go save grandma. Grandma has to die because we didn't want her to die. But it's sad. Okay, so
it's like the adult version of Oregon Trail. You would go up the mountain, you come down, grandma dies by acid, and then little Jimmy dies by snake bite.
You thought you were gonna be okay, but then dysentery, and now
wipes you out.
Yeah, so that one made my list. It barely squeaked in. It made it in there at 20, but I didn't see that make anybody else's list. So shout out to Grandma in Dante's Peak, and then I think maybe the most controversial pick of the evening, at least reading the list, was inanimate objects. And I mean, look, I'm going to tell you guys that none of you have a heart if you don't think that volleyball, otherwise known as Wilson, is in fact a real person. And I cried. I mean, I cried very much when Tom had to say goodbye to Wilson. I mean, he had to decide, am I going to get back on this raft? Or am I going to let Wilson go out to sea? And I mean, gosh, that sparked a lot of people have connections, I think, with Wilson Volleyball now, and
that was his best friend. That was his best friend. And also on the list of honorable mentions, the like protagonist living on his own and has to say goodbye to his best friend is the dog from I Am Legend. That was also on the honorable mention list, and it was a close one because Will Smith not only having to see the dog die, but having to take an active part in it is rough. That is.
I think that's true. That may be one of the only ones on our list where the other person is like, like actively killing the person. I think there's one more that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, that one. Look at the flowers, Lenny. Look at the flowers. Yeah, Listen, if there's anything we know about movies, the dog always dies.
I'm going to turn this over, but I got to tell you guys, I had 3 dogs of 20. 3 dogs.
And 1 volleyball. That's a quarter of your list.
One volleyball, 3 dogs, and 16 real people. That's what made up my list. Okay.
Kyle, you had a couple other on your list that were also some inanimate objects. Do you want, like, with maybe in the robot variety? Do you want to touch on those?
So y'all are heartless, and this is how I know that because Baymax did not make either of y'all's lists. I don't know last time y'all saw Big Hero 6 when Baymax sacrifices himself, much like the grandma from Dante's Peak, which I've never heard of before. They may have just ripped that right off of Dante's Peak. I don't know, but he sacrificed himself to save the kid at the end. I watched this with my 3-year-old for the first time like a couple months ago. And I was like, I'll sit down and watch this, whatever. I didn't realize it was a Marvel comic book originally. And about halfway through, I was like, this is actually pretty good. And then we get to the point where Baymax sacrificed himself. I'm crying. My 3-year-old's crying. My mom walks in and goes, what's wrong with you? I was like, I just didn't know.
You don't understand.
For Baymax to go. Between Baymax and the Iron Giant not making it on this list, that's tough. The Iron Giant, you do see him piecing himself back together at the end of the movie. So does he die? Who's to say? Baymax also becomes reincarnated at the end of Big Hero 6. So that I feel like there's a loophole. I'm not going to hold you guys to fire for it. I do think y'all do need to see a psychiatrist, maybe talk about some feelings, because obviously we're suppressing some things. But another big one that did not make the list, also in the Disney category, is Bing Bong from Inside Out.
That one hurts.
That one hurts because that was me being 25 in the movie theater watching that and going, uh-oh, my bad. And I have like no reason to be in that movie theater other than I wanted to see a Disney movie. And when Bing Bong's a rocket ship and he jumps off to make sure that Joy makes it, holy cow, that's tough. You guys are heartless.
Yeah, and to be fair, Bing Bong was like literally just outside the list.
It's fine.
Take your participation trophy and go die in Imagination Land, Bing Bong. I don't know.
Another couple big ones that didn't make it. Maximus from Gladiator, which Alan brought up a good point off camera, that it's not actually super sad because at that point he pretty much is only living to kill Joaquin Phoenix's character, whose name is
Emperor.
Yep, Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, he finally kills Emperor Palpatine there in the gladiatorial ring. And at that point, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty rich, ready to go see my wife and kid. And so that's less sad. I agree with you on that point. I showed you guys earlier from The Mist. The ending of The Mist as a horror film from the mid-2000s. The ending of that movie is heartbreaking. And I think I'm in the wrong group of people to sell that to, so I desist.
No, you're not, man, because clearly I'm dark. Because watching that clip, you're showing us this clip before this thing starts, and like halfway through, I'm like, how bad would this be? It's like at the end of it, he murders his whole family, and then he's okay. Like nothing happens, and then you're like, wait, what?
Give it 30 more seconds, yeah.
And to anybody watching, if you really want to get in the right headspace to do a sad movie scene podcast, you should just watch David kill his whole family from The Mist, and then you have it all locked up right here, ready to bring to the masses.
Yeah. Another one I don't think made the final list was Heath Ledger from The Patriot.
And The Patriot.
That's a really good death scene. That's heartbreaking and so sad, but it didn't rank it high enough on my list. I guess you didn't either. Yeah.
I had it low on mine, but yeah, it was up there.
Good one, man. Yeah.
Wash from Serenity deserves some flowers too, because that's a great Joss Whedon movie and based on a great TV show. And it's sad to see him go. And then Dale wrote in and he wanted to make sure that we got Van Zant from Reign of Fire, which is Matthew McConaughey's character. And if you recall, he dies by jumping off the tower with an axe into a dragon's mouth. And does not kill the dragon. The dragon does end up killing him, actually.
No, that's the opposite of sad. That is the coolest.
He doesn't kill the dragon. Like, it doesn't work.
He was going on his terms, and his terms apparently was shirtless, through the air, axe wielding into the mouth of a dragon. Dela said on multiple occasions that that's the way that he wants to go. And I don't know where we're going to get, how we're going to meet in the middle somewhere, but that's where we're at.
I'm excited to make that happen.
Well, I do want to give one shout out
in due time, not like immediately before, like, don't call anybody. All right, before anybody is like, it's not like now, but I mean like when it's time, like when it's time. Sure. He'll give me like he'll give me the $1 million baby.
Find
like,
the dragon now.
Yeah, he'll like sign it with his mouth, and I'll be like, I got it. Where I'm bringing the dragon.
The dragon's just that tiger that killed Siegfried or Roy, whichever one it was.
Two on my list that didn't make it, or I guess three, were one, G-Baby from Hardball, which is basically Mighty Ducks for baseball, with Keanu Reeves. And when G-Baby dies, because they all think like everybody's okay, and they're like, hey, let's go. And then like G-Baby's just dead, and they're like, oh, like that.
Yeah,
that hits me right where I live. When Thomas from My Girl, Macaulay Culkin. And to be fair, I haven't seen this whole movie. I want to totally just lay that out there for everybody. But I have seen this scene where he dies, and that is messed up. That is so messed up.
The little girl puts those glasses.
Oh, he can't see without his glasses, and he's just
and
dead.
the little boy who's allergic to everything gets killed by bees trying to go help a little girl find her things. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then finally, John Wick's puppy. I mean, it's not a podcast you deserve without talking about John Wick at some point. Yeah. So when Daisy dies, that's pretty rough. And if you didn't know the dog's name was Daisy, that's on you. Be a better fan.
I wrote John Wick's dog on my list. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So be a better fan. Well, everybody, strap in. Look at the flowers, because here comes the top. Just look at the flowers, Lenny. Just look at the flowers. Because here comes the top 15 saddest movie deaths of all time, brought to you by Not the Podcast You Deserve. Number 15, Boromir from Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
This obviously played by Sean Bean, right? The
As
man
all good death scenes are.
Dies in everything.
Yep.
If anything, he deserves to be on this list because he dies all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've done this, right? Haven't they done this? Like he may have like the most deaths in television and movies like combined as an actor. It's something like that. He's up there.
He's got to be close.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe because Nick Cage has been in so many things, but I just don't think he dies in many.
He doesn't die that much. No, he doesn't die.
Well, he's invincible to both karate and mortal weapons.
Yes, you got to think Sean
Bean's
like agent. He's like, Sean.
Yeah,
I got another part for you, and he's like, he gets it, and he just flips to the end. He's like, son of a. Like, I mean,
Sean Bean reads the script backwards to see at what point his character dies.
There it is. All right.
Two great Nick Cage roles that we didn't get on the list were Big Daddy from Kick-Ass. His death scene in that is terrifying. And his death scene in The Wicker Man, which is hysterical. Ooh. Also induced by bees, partly.
Yeah. I was about to say, speaking of bees. Yikes. Well, you asked about Boromir, though, here. And obviously, the death scene here that ends up being the kind of catalyst that, like, not only motivates the whole Fellowship team, but also fractures the team. It's right after this scene that everyone just goes their own way. And the most annoying combination of Samwise Gamgee and Frodo, we have to, like, go watch them for the next 2 movies, which is awful. So I guess kind of Boromir like does that. And so we have him to thank for like why we don't get to just like hang out with everyone all the whole time. But that's pretty sad, man. He takes it. How many arrows? Like 4, 6?
So many to the knee.
I think it was like 300.
It's a lot.
When he looks like he's down and out, and then he looks up and he sees the hobbits, and he's like, I gotta keep going. And then he like rallies, and you're like, he's dead. He's so dead. but like heroically sacrificing himself for the team.
By the way, can I throw out this? I do not think he gets a very good burial. Okay, so people who've just seen the movie, the original movie, they're going to go, oh, no, see, it's nice. See, there's a reason the Viking, like, death, they, like, burn you in the deal. They put him in a canoe, send him down the river, and he goes over the waterfall. Well, spoiler alert, his dead body washes up on the shore for his dad to find. It's not ideal, like how it all goes down. Like, at least bury the guy or burn him or do something. That's tough, man.
Yeah, that is rough. It's way worse than eaten by dragon.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of death by arrow, is his death that much more sad than Leonidas's death in 300? That just popped up to me. I did not think about that when I was putting my list together. But I said I think he was killed by 300 arrows, and that's what sparked Leonidas.
That's why
that was it. Now we are all on the same level. I got you to where I was. Now we're all here.
I think as we go throughout this list, we'll see this theme reoccurring. But there are certain deaths that happen in movies that are profound, right? But a lot of them are maybe like the heroic sacrifice of a character as he finishes his arc, and you're sad, but you're also like applauding it, and you're like, yeah, that was great. The ones that I think predominantly take over this list, there's a few that fit that category here, but the ones that predominantly take over this list are the ones that come out of nowhere and or are just so grippingly sad because they motivate some other character, and they're just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And Boromir is part of that, right? Alan, you nailed it. I think he's a catalyst. And it's not like the heroic sacrifice that, some of the other characters go on, and like Elijah Wood is ready to go on at the end of the movie. But moving on. Number 14, Goose from Top Gun.
Boo. I refute this pick.
I knew this was going to be low on the list because Kyle hates America and Top Gun.
Just Top Gun, actually. Just the movie.
But Goose is the saddest death ever. Because
he's the only good part of that movie. So when he dies, it is like, oh no, the only good part is gone.
Oh, movie's over, I guess. Yeah. So I mean, there's all the people out there that are like, maybe Mav and Goose are gay. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think Goose is, right? Because he's with Meg Ryan. But like, if that's the case, then it's even sadder. If it's not the case, it's still really sad. Like, this is his best friend and like partner flying through the air. They're on a training mission, and like, oh god, when he hits the glass.
Oh,
that is like you just feel it. It like reverberates through your chest.
Is that real? Is that real? Is that like a deep state theory?
It's out there, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's Val Kilmer, Iceman in the room, and that's the one that we're.
I think the fanfic is that they're all gay, but like, well, yeah, just kind of.
I mean, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, that one's sad. I think the scene after is sad. The part in the where he's talking with Meg Ryan's character, and Meg Ryan's like
shirtless.
He loves flying with you, Maverick. I mean, that part you're just like, okay, yeah, he did.
Funny story about this. My wife loves Top Gun and watched it religiously growing up. Her brother, or her older brother, who also loves Top Gun, used to skip this scene every time. Like, he would just skip that chapter in the movie and just keep going on. So my wife, who had seen this movie probably 30 times, didn't know Goose died till she was like 15 years old. Because she watched it at somebody else's house and was like, wait, what just happened? And they're like, this is like the main part of the movie. And she's like, no, it's not. And apparently it was so sad that my brother-in-law had been skipping that chapter of the movie for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. So that's how sad it is. You can't bear to watch it. Moving on. Number 13, Rooney from Road to Perdition. For those of you who don't know Road to Perdition, it's a fantastic movie starring Tom Hanks, Jude Law, Daniel Craig, Paul Newman, and would have won the Academy Award for Best Picture if the Academy wasn't a bunch of cop-outs that decided they had to vote for a musical for Chicago, which is basically fancy burlesque.
No.
And
as we've discussed.
I'm sorry, but you need to preach. And if this thing ever gets picked up and more than 10 people see it or listen to it, God, I hope so. Because here's the thing. This is the truest truth you could say on a podcast. Road to Perdition was robbed.
I didn't realize it lost to Chicago. That's
Chicago. Chicago took everything.
That's a bad movie too.
Best picture, blah, blah, blah. And it was
John C. Reilly singing Mr. Cellophane. Oh.
Yeah, look, this was the movie. Do yourself a favor. If you haven't seen this movie, this is your next movie evening. You go sit down, watch this movie. It's phenomenal. Not Chicago. Wow, what a pull off size that was. No, not Chicago. No, Road to Perdition, phenomenal movie. And this death scene made my number one. This was my number one. This is John Rooney, Paul Newman's character in this deal. Drew, if you want to tease it, you can set it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's going on in this scene is Paul Newman, who is a crime lord in a local area, has been raising Tom Hanks, kind of his heir apparent, his not his real son, but like his right-hand man. And throughout the movie, some stuff goes down. Tom Hanks has to die now. And Paul Newman has to give the order. He finds out about that. There's this whole thing. He feels like he now has to kill his father figure, basically. And there's this beautiful moment where Paul Newman is walking through the rain with some of his henchmen. He's going to his car, and he finds out his driver's dead and the car is locked. And then all of a sudden, while this piano music is playing in the background, a Tommy gun is firing. You don't hear any of it, but just his henchmen are dying around him, and Paul Newman's not even looking up, unfazed. He's just like, I know what's happening right now. And out of the shadows comes Tom Hanks, and he looks at Paul Newman, and Paul Newman just goes, I'm glad it was you.
Glad it was you.
His basically his son, who's actually better than his real son, who's played by Daniel Craig. And he loves him more than his real son. And that is the man that kills him in the rain and with a Tommy gun while a beautiful piano plays. And he goes, I'm glad it was you.
I'm glad it was you. And I got to say, I was telling this earlier off screen. This may be my top, this is a top 5 cinematic scene for me, period. The way they shot it. And, again, as Drew said, it's silent, and you're just seeing the flashes of the Tommy gun as people are dying, and then the music that comes up, it's the rain. They just basically let the rain come up, and you just hear it. And the thing that's terrible about this and so sad is that Paul Newman, Tom Hanks's character, has to kill Paul Newman so that he can go kill Daniel Craig, which is Paul Newman's son. And because Paul's the top end of the mob boss, Rooney's the top guy, the only way they're going to allow him, Tom Hanks, this old henchman, to go kill the guy who's murdered his wife and his other kid is to do this. And he's doing this to try to get his son Michael a better life. He can get out from under this and go do it. It's gut-wrenching moment. It's a top one for me. Absolutely. Well shot, well seen. Well shot, and got all the feels.
Rooney from Road to Perdition coming in at 13. Number 12, similar to how Alan, this Road to Perdition was your number one. Harry Stamper from Armageddon coming in for Kyle. The number 12 saddest movie death scene.
He saved all of our lives, and y'all didn't vote for him. You cowards. Okay? He made the ultimate sacrifice. He flew up to space. He's an oil driller. What's he doing in space? He handles a nuclear warhead, and then explodes the asteroid with him on it to save all of us. And y'all are like, nah, too good for my list. Whatever. That's fine. It's the saddest death scene of all time because he's talking to his daughter right before he hits the button. There's an asteroid quake where he gets thrown from the thing. They got to draw straws. It's the world's most dramatic lead up to a death scene. And you think Ben Affleck is the one who's gonna die, and then he rips off the tube in his helmet, says, "Take care of my daughter." Oh my God, I might start crying.
No.
Anyways, I'm right. That's the most sad death scene of all time. When he says, "We win, Gracie, we win," and he pushes the button at the end. He says, "Push the button, Stamper." Oh my God. Oh, that is cinema, is what that is.
That is a good part. Cinema. You're right. That Ben Affleck scene when he's banging on the window,
Harry, I love you.
Oh, Harry, no. But to be fair, Harry didn't didn't follow the honor system. You know, it was supposed to be Ben Affleck. He drew the short straw.
True. Yeah.
So
there's a bunch of sad deaths in Armageddon. Actually, Owen Wilson's character dying by asteroid hit. That's tough. When Max gets flown
Which
out.
one's sadder, Owen Wilson dying by asteroid or being eaten by an anaconda?
Boy, both.
Dude, I'm going off script here, but that movie, what was that movie? Was it Mission to Mars? You guys are talking about space. The one where they it was kind of came out around the same time because space was everything. We were just making space movies. But they're like out there in space and floating away, and the husband doesn't want his wife to like come get him. Like he's like lost his projection, he's floating. So he lifts his face like sealed up so that he dies, and so she doesn't like come get him. Ooh. Now you got my head going in like
space. Space is a hard one. A lot of people die in space. It's a top reason why I don't want to go. Bottom of the ocean, top of space. Don't want to go to either one.
2027, they announced Hotel in Space.
I am a terrestrial being, so I will see. I will stay there. But speaking of space, we will move into number 11, which is the entire cast of Rogue One. There are specific ones on here that may be more impactful than others, but there are multiple worth talking about. Kyle, I'll let you lead into this one if you want.
The blind Jedi, when he goes down, that's really sad because that halfway through, it's like, I think he's gonna make it, and then he doesn't. It's like, oh no. Alan Tudyk's robot character, that's the worst one. That one hurts hard.
Yeah.
I think I talked about this earlier. But like, even though I know Star Wars and I know what happens after this movie, and I still like halfway through the final battle scene, I was like, how are they gonna get off this planet in time? And then as they all started dying, it's like, oh, these are the people that we talked about in episode 4, with a lot of people died to get this information. These are the people that died. That's tough. That took me way longer than it should have. It took me way longer than it should have, and that would be like, oh, they're all gonna die. Oh, okay. Yeah. That made it hurt so much worse, I think.
Yeah. And so that is honestly going to be my point about this, is that I'm a big Star Wars geek. I know Alan is too. Don't mean to out you on the internet, but there it is.
I'm there. It's okay. It's known.
This was a movie I went into going, they all have to die. Like, I knew that going in. And then halfway through the movie, I forgot. And was like, I can't, like, I'm so emotionally invested in them. Like, they have to live. And like,
why did you know they had to die?
Because they never appear in any of the other ones. You can only force ghost people, so many times into future movies before we all just check out.
Yeah, unless you're David Filoni and you're like, look, here's the thing. Ahsoka, she just jumped, okay? We're gonna have a real reason. We're gonna explain. No, we're not gonna explain it. Here's the thing. She's just there. She's just there. She took time out for a while. But I am gonna out myself on my geekness here. Okay, so the line you just used, Kyle, about many Bothan spies died to bring us this message, that's from Return of the Jedi.
Oh wow!
Ooh, that is Mon Mothma, and then she turns it over to Admiral Akbar right after that, and he slurps himself up and then he goes after it.
So in case there was any confusion, you did just out yourself as a huge nerd.
I want everyone to know that my brain was going off and going, let's run. So like, I know this so much. Like, I know what that line is, but that's just not right.
So I do love. We'll move on quickly here, but I do love that Star Wars has made a really good way of making us care about robots. We care about C-3PO, even though he's kind of a turd. We care about R2-D2. We care about Alan Tudyk's robot. I can't remember his number, so I'm sorry.
KS2 or something.
There it is. We care about David Tennant's robot in Ahsoka. We care about the robot from Andor, the other one that has charging problems. We care about their robots even when they don't speak. And I was like, when you are able to tell a compelling story, and I care when a robot gets unplugged and or dies, that is very impactful.
Fair enough.
Also, Alan Tudyk just really good at playing robots. Also iRobot with Sonny. It's great.
Sonny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the entire cast of Rogue One, well done. All of your deaths, very impactful. Number 11. Number 10, moving into Dead Poet Society, Neil Perry. The actor who was inspired by his friendship with Ethan Hawke and his teaching mentor, Robin Williams, and decided to go pursue his acting career and be in some kind of Shakespeare play. I want to say maybe Othello or something like that. I don't know. Midsummer Night's Dream.
He plays Puck. Yeah, he plays Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream.
But then Red Foreman from That 70s Show, who's his dad, is real mean to him, tells him that he can't be an actor. And he succumbs to this pressure, from his father, and he ends up killing himself in his dad's office with his dad's handgun.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that hits hard when you see Dr. House's friend kill himself in Red Foreman's office with the handgun. And if that's not your answer to the next round of Clue you play, I don't know.
Yeah, Robert Sean Leonard. I don't really know what he was doing in between Dead Poet Society and House. There seems to be a bit of a gap in where we see him. But yeah, that's a terribly sad scene, And then obviously it proctors the removal of Robin Williams as a teacher there at school.
I think part of what makes this scene in particular so sad is that the movie itself feels very uplifting, right? It's this teacher who's bucking the old system and encouraging his students to go and carpe diem and seize the day and believe in themselves and fight for what they believe in and, really grow and challenge them. And part of growing and challenging yourself is dealing with hard emotions, right? And he didn't have a good support system to deal with that, unfortunately. And that's why it hits so hard, is that it feels so avoidable and so tragic.
Did you see it coming? No. The first time I saw the movie, I can remember not thinking, because the kid goes from like the happiest moment because he finally is in that, and his dad, sees it, pulls him out and stuff, but it goes dark real fast. I did not see it coming the first time. I think that's what was so shocking.
I think this is a great spot for me to put this in here because there's a nice little beat right there. So I can easily edit this next part out if I need to, which is now this part. My favorite part about that movie is when Matt Damon comes back at the end and he's talking to Robin Williams, and Robin Williams says, "It's not your fault." He's like, "I know." He's like, "No, it's not your fault." He's like, "No, I know." He's like, "No, it's not your fault." He's like, "I know." And he breaks down. That's my favorite part of Dead Poet Society.
Robin Williams is just really good at being the mentor and getting all the feels out of us. That's all that you need to know about that. Moving on from Dead Poet Society
too, because doesn't he dress up like a woman at the end of that movie? I think he's like a nanny or something.
Yes,
good
well, then they play the board game where the rhinos come out.
That's it. That's the one. Oh, and then he's gay with Nathan Lane. That's how
you're all being way too flippant about being sad movie deaths. We need to get back into the feels. So we're gonna move from Dr. House's friend offing himself after A Midsummer Night's Dream to another Shakespeare knockoff with The Lion King, which is basically just Hamlet, where Mufasa dies by the hands of his brother.
Scar.
Okay.
By Jeremy Irons.
Kyle, you have to have been seeing this more recently. If you're in my same boat, we both have young kids. And I've watched The Lion King a lot more recently than I had, and I mean, the last time I watched it, I was tearing up at that scene.
Yeah.
I mean, that part is terribly sad. And when you got a little girl watching it with you, you're just like, don't like it hits you different.
Oh, for sure. And I think one thing we haven't talked much about is the difference between a death on camera and a death off camera, or whether you see the immediate aftermath or whether they time jump a little bit. Because like The Bridge to Terabithia, if you've ever seen that movie, like it's extremely sad, but I don't think you actually see the girl like fall to her death. You definitely don't see like her body wash up on shore, or Boromir. You don't see his body like wash up on shore afterwards and ruin a whole village's drinking supply water supply for drinking. But this one, like you see him fall to the ground and get stampeded on, and then you see the little lion cub going like poking like, "Dad, get up, Dad!" Get up. It's like, why did you have to do that to me right now? Like that's even as a 30-year-old, that hits hard. And my question is, How many people on this earth, Drew? How many people are on this earth right now? 7 billion something.
7 billion has to be at least that.
Cool. Oh, Alan, is that all right? I go to Drew for all my geography fact things that I
don't. You weren't quoting Star Wars, so I'm not going to correct you.
Of the 7 billion people on the planet currently, how many of us were first introduced to the idea of death by watching Simba poke at Mufasa's dead body? Go, Dad, get up! Like, it's got to be a decent chunk of that.
Well, you know who did it? I don't think this made our list, and so but the other movie that has that same impact, kind of coming out similar time, is Land Before Time, and literally the exact same scene. And Littlefoot is like poking his mom. He's like, "Get up, mom! Get up, mom! Mother!" And like the dude is in trouble. I mean, at least Simba has like Scar, who like totally. I don't know. Can you swear on this? Because I almost swore. But anyway,
you got it.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, well, I mean, you got Scar, who totally mind like as soon as it's over. Like his dead dad's sitting right there, and he's like, "Oh, Simba, you've done this again.
You did it. I won't tell anyone.
You messed up, Simba. What is your mother thinking?" And then he's like, "Run away," And so anyway, but you got that. But you got Littlefoot, same time, and I'm kid. I mean, we're kids. I mean, this is 90, 91. I don't know how to look at it. I mean, and you're looking at this going, "Wait, mom can die.
Yeah,
dad can die."
That's tough.
Yeah. Tough deal, but Littlefoot didn't have anybody, man. He had like one little leaf with some water in it. That dude was screwed.
I think
the Triceratops part that was so mean to him.
I think the hardest part about the Mufasa death in The Lion King is that not only is it like betrayed by your brother, it's like, ooh, that's a hard death in and of itself, and then it's like a gripping, like, is he gonna save him? And he's like, no, I'm not gonna save you. Like, I'm gonna like and then he doesn't just die quickly from like a stab or something like that, or like, a claw to the face. He lets him fall, and then he doesn't die from the fall. He dies from being stampeded by the antelope. So it's like a really drug out death with so many outs of like, he could die now. No, he could die now. It's like, no, we're gonna make it way worse. It's like watching Daisy the puppy get kicked and beaten and then crawl all the way to John Wick to then die in his arms.
I like how we keep adding our own back in. We're like, here, it's a lot like, when Bruce dies in Dante's Peak, it's the same thing. It's the grandma. No, have you seen Olaf, the short story thing where he does it? All right, that's it. That piece where he does the Mufasa, and he's like, Mufasa's
then
dead.
And only then does he die.
But he's not totally dead yet. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
as we've talked about on some previous ones, when you come back after your death, it doesn't necessarily cheat your death scene, but it does give a little bit of like relief to your heart. So when he comes back in the Black Panther ancestral plane and talks to his son, through the clouds or whatever. That is what that is, by the way. When I saw that in Black Panther, I was like, that is the Lion King. You even use the same tree. That's the same tree. Like, what are we talking about? Where's Rafiki? Like, you just ripped this. I understand that Marvel got bought by Disney, but like, did you have to repeat all the sets? Like,
were you on
that tight of a budget? Anyway, moving on. Number 8, Shawshank Redemption. Brooks Halton, who is the old man who runs the library, right? And then everybody loves him, and then he actually ends up going on parole, and he doesn't want to leave prison because he doesn't know how to live in the outside world because he's just been in prison so long. He tries to like attack somebody in the library so that they won't let him out. They let him out anyway, and he tries to make it as a bag man. They have a groceries, and he can't, and hangs himself.
Yep.
In his halfway house where he scratches in Brooks was here, and he hangs himself.
I unfortunately was laughing at your depiction of an old decrepit man, and as soon as you said hangs himself, I started to laugh, and I immediately.
Well, it's because you're a bad person.
Yeah.
It's because you're dead inside.
Such unfortunate timing.
Like Brooks is now.
he's describing this old man who's been institutionalized because he's been in prison his whole life. He gets out, and you're just dying laughing the whole time.
Like, what trying to cover it up.
Guy doesn't even know how to live in the real world.
Oh, was he gonna try to be a grocery man?
Honestly, people are not gonna they're gonna watch this list and be like, these guys are like terrible. These are animals.
Assholes, yeah.
These giant assholes. They've laughed the entire time. They've been trying to do the saddest list.
Well,
this is
not
a
the
terribly
podcast
sad.
you deserve.
Oh, this is a terribly sad death scene. I mean, it really is. I mean, and this movie has got a lot of hard hitting stuff throughout it. Like this is just, and it's, you hate it too because the guy's character, spoiler alert, is innocent from the very beginning, the main character. And so the whole thing just feels like one giant injustice. And then Brooks is like the first person to like make him feel normal in prison and gives him, job in the library and just, helps, what's his name? Belfour? What's his first name? Tim Robbins' character.
Yeah. I do appreciate you putting a spoiler alert on a 30-year-old movie. That's good for our fans.
I am here. If nothing, I will always try to censor. Okay. So look, if you haven't seen it, maybe right after Road to Perdition, you can go.
In a movie called Shawshank Redemption, it's really hard to see a character who does everything right. He's in prison, so like you're like a little but he's a prisoner with a heart of gold, right?
Yeah,
he's been there for so long, and he's living his life, and now he doesn't get redeemed. In what should be a happy moment, right, where he gets released from prison. What from the outside we just expect everybody should be like, I'm happy I'm now out of prison. It was the opposite for him, right? And that's what's so devastating about it.
And the way that he's reading the letter. Okay, so like that's the narration of what's happening is basically stream of consciousness, and he's writing this letter, and then at the end he's like, I'm not happy, I don't like it here, I don't think I'm gonna stay, and then that's when you see him do it. I mean, it's
had his little bird in the library. Hate that. Brooks Halton from Shawshank Redemption, number 8. Number 7. This one hurts me. I think they're just going to get more and more painful as we go along. So everybody just. But oh man, Marley from Marley and Me.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, that's tough.
We had an animal. We had an animal dying right just a few spots ago with Mufasa, but it's different when it's a real life dog versus an animated lion. Like this is the one that you all look at and go, that could be my dog. That could be the dog I'm watching this movie with right now.
Yeah. When Owen Wilson's like, I think he's like sitting on the ground, like crouched over him when the dog's obviously not feeling him. He's like, yeah, you're okay, buddy. Yeah, you're okay. You're like, I don't think the dog is okay, Owen. I don't think he's going to make it.
Dude, that whole, oh God, the part where he's sitting there too, and he's at the vet, and he's just like, it's okay because you loved us so well. And I mean, I am watching. I mean, I'm getting sad thinking about this. This is the first one on the list so far that I'm like, okay, now I'm like legitimately.
I might need Wilson.
I'm legitimately like that. Like I won't watch.
I'm gonna need a minute.
Yeah, I won't watch this movie again. I watched it in college. I watched it in college with my girlfriend, now wife, and was literally I was bawling. And I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And I mean, it just wrecked me. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And I had a golden retriever at home. And so this thing was, and an old golden retriever. And obviously Marley's a lab. But anyway, this thing hits hard. That movie, if you see that movie and you do not cry, shame on you. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like I'm having a Biden moment from today's earlier message where he like had a really important thing to say and he just said, don't. Okay, but like, so I should say, don't. I should say something more impactful there, but seriously, like, right? I mean, if you don't cry watching this, I don't know that you have a heart.
My only public service announcement I can give to the youth out there is if you're on a date, don't go see this movie. Because you're just really hurting your own chances. And here's the deal. If you don't hurt your chances, that means you're with a psychopath and you need to break up with her anyway. So, yeah, I did that. I went to this movie. I was like, oh, what a great date movie. We'll go see a cute movie about a dog. And then afterwards, it's like, well, you want to cry and not talk to each other anymore? Okay, goodbye.
You didn't cry?
No, I cried, she cried, we all cried. Like,
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
There was
like,
just no action after we cried.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
sure.
like, can I put my arm around you? And it's like, if only you hold me because I'm gonna cry for an hour. And it's like, all right, well, okay.
Not what I had planned, but here we are.
Let me ask you: Have you guys watched this movie more than once?
Mm-mm.
I don't think so.
Okay, see, I think that might be that's a really good litmus test for Sadness, right? Legitimately, this thing got me, and I was like, I'm good. I've seen it. I'm not gonna watch this again.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Moving into the Hallmark movies here now. Number 6 on the list, Tony Stark in Endgame.
Oh, this is a tough. This was 20 movies in the making at this point in time, right? Even if you'd only been in like 8 of them up to this point, that's a character that you grew up with. To see him, and I think too, like betting odds, like going into that movie, I was for sure Captain America was gonna die.
Yeah, me too.
I felt pretty strongly that the Hulk was gonna die. I was like, Iron Man, like whatever, he'll be fine. And when he was the one who bit the dust at the end, I was like, oh, that hurts so much worse. But he goes out in such a cool way, in such an Iron Man way, that I was like, he deserves that ending, absolutely. But very sad still. That broke me.
It's sad. It's hard. It's filmed well. Gwyneth Paltrow there at the end. She's holding him as the light flickers off, for the last time. That's a tough deal. The funeral scene afterwards, and Jon Favreau's got his daughter, and he's like, "What do you want? You want me to make some sandwiches? You want me, So that's really tough. Obviously, yeah. I think most of us did not expect Iron Man to be the one that dies.
Yeah, no, agreed. Because you start the movie with him like, "I'm gonna die," right? And he's like recording his thing to Gwyneth Paltrow, and then like, here, I'm gonna run out of oxygen here in a minute, and like, and then he ends up being saved, and you're like, great, Tony Stark saved. We don't have to worry about it. Crisis averted. Turns out. And to me, we talked about it a little bit with Rooney's death and Road to Perdition, but I think music plays a lot in death scenes as well. What the score is, and truly, for lack of a better term here with a pun, underscoring the scene itself. And when Tony Stark dies, it's silent. Right? The gravity of his death in that moment is so big and impactful in and of itself. It doesn't need additional like tearjerker music in the background or whatever. You're just so wrecked. Especially if you had watched all of the movies. You could watch that movie by itself and feel impacted by it. But if you know that you've got a 20-year arc going on behind it, or 20-movie arc going on behind it, like, dang, that is hard.
If you had 20 movies of Marley leading up to Marley being put down at the end, holy cow.
Look, you also didn't have a this is a scene, this is a movie series that has had a lot of people die and come back. And there is something very finite about, and final about Tony's death, right? That he's not coming back. And again, the Marvel nerds out there, he's a character in most of the comics and everything that's still running. He's still doing stuff. His character was not one that, frankly, Captain America dies in some of the stuff that they've done. And so, it was interesting that they chose to kill him off. And so I thought it was tearjerker for sure.
Yeah. Top 5. Here we go. Get your Kleenex ready. Because we're going to hit you with some ones that maybe you at home didn't think of, and shame on you, because this is why you come to Not the Podcast You Deserve, to find out what really should impact you at heart. Number 5, Irwin Wade, the medic from Saving Private Ryan, played by Giovanni Ribisi, right? This is the moment where the group, they've already lost Vin Diesel, right? Who was trying to help a little girl up or down, I can't remember which direction she's going, from the family on the second floor of a blown out building. And Vin Diesel's like, oh, it reminds me of my sister. Boom, he's dead. That one hurts. That one sucks in and of itself. There's a lot of tragic deaths right at the end of it too. But right there in the middle, you're starting to get a sense for the team. They're kind of questioning the mission, but they believe in Captain Miller, and like we're gonna move on, and like we're rallying, and we're having some success, and here we go. And part of the core of that team had been the medic the whole time. Voice of reason, fun guy, everybody loves him. And here he gets injured and is dying and bleeding out, and they're trying desperately to save him. And the medic realizes that he can't be saved. So instead of asking for anything else, he just asks for more morphine. Because just basically kill me gently. And he talks about his mom, how he pretended to be asleep when she would come home, and he didn't know why he did that, and he just wished he had spent more time with his mother, and all of this is happening while he knows he's going to die. And whoa, does Irwin Wade earn number 5 on this list.
The funny thing that came to my mind while y'all were talking about this very sad death scene was picturing Dale driving home from work, listening to the podcast to like pass the time, and here we are all like crying, talking about these terribly sad moments in movies, and him just being like, "What are we doing? What are we listening to here?" That's tough.
You're worried about
I don't know what you thought was going to happen when you come to the saddest movie scenes. We laughed our way through the first 10. All right, we tried to make it light.
It's real now.
It's real now. Welcome to the Thunderdome. Last comment before I move on. I do think what makes this one so impactful is that in a movie about a war, right, where there are just thousands of deaths happening all over the place, they make you feel this one more than any, because it's just the team. And it's basically him being, quote unquote, killed by his own team. He was going to die from his injuries, but they had to do it. Like they finished him off. And that one,
you know, this
more
is
than
also
just a stray bullet from an enemy.
Yeah, this is also not part of the original mission. If you remember,
Correct.
I just remembered this. They decided to take that bunker because they could go around. That's not a part of it. And they have that debate. And then they ultimately decide, you know, someone else is going to come along and other soldiers might just get mowed away by this bunker. We should take this bunker. So they end up like losing this guy because they decided to stop and do something off mission to save others. So yeah, it's heroic and tragic and avoidable.
Much like Grandma from Dante's Peak.
And then when Tom Hanks said, "Earn this," Matt Damon instead went to therapy with Robin Williams.
By the way, for those out there listening that goes, "Hey, what about when Tom dies at the end?" It did make my list, but Drew pointed out accurately that, hey, he kind of goes out like a badass. I mean, he fires his gun at a tank. It doesn't do anything, but he fires it at a tank, and then he stares at Matt Damon. Yeah, well, a little play, and then he stares at Matt Damon. He's like, "Earn this." So, I mean, good point. That was a pretty baller way to die.
Yeah.
It just below being eaten by dragon.
You beat me to it by half a second. God dang it.
Yeah.
Gotta be
number 4 on the list of saddest movie deaths in cinema, John Coffey in The Green Mile.
Oh, tragedy that it's 4. Another Tom Hanks movie. You guys love Tom Hanks so much.
I do. He made a lot of lists. I think I said earlier, it's like apparently when Tom dies or someone dies around Tom, it hits a little harder. It hits different.
Even when just inanimate objects float off.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Not ruining anybody's water supply.
So sad.
Some volleyball just washed up on another beach, and somebody was like, "What the f is this?"
I don't like to think that. I don't like to think that Wilson survived out there in the water. We all like to think Wilson.
What, he got eaten by a shark?
Digested by a shark later on? Yeah.
Honestly, you know what's probably true, and I just thought about this. It's probably true that Wilson got washed back up on the freaking tide, and Wilson is still on that damn island.
Just open up FedEx boxes.
That is so sad. Tom's got a responsibility to get back out there.
Find his best friend.
Find that best friend, Tom.
Leave no man behind.
We got off on a tangent there on Tom Hanks, but you're right. He is around a lot of death in cinema, a lot of good death in cinema, or bad death, impactful death. That's the one. But John Coffey in The Green Mile, right? A Jesus-like character who's just like healing everybody, never did anything wrong, and just is persecuted, and then like willingly gives up and goes to his own death, and everybody else doesn't want to take him there but knows that they have to, and it is, wow, that is heartbreaking. after he's healed Tom Hanks of his inability to pee.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the third Stephen King. I mean, we didn't do The Mist, but we honorable mention with The Mist, and then Shawshank, and now Green Mile. So
Shawshank was Stephen King?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Surprise face.
Reevaluate some things.
Yeah. So that's what's interesting too. The little thing on Stephen King. Technically, he said all of his books take place in the same universe.
Yeah.
So all this is all in the same place.
Number 3 coming in on saddest movie death scenes is Dobby, a dead elf, and
a dead elf.
I'm gonna let that sit for a second. Dobby is a dead elf.
Dead elf.
So I know that you're a big Star Wars guy. Are you a big Harry Potter guy too?
I do love me some Harry Potter.
I was not talking to you.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's hard to tell when you just point. You just point at the screen. What do you want?
I do like Harry Potter. My wife is a much bigger Harry Potter fan. She loves Harry Potter. But I do like Harry Potter. I'm much more of a Star Wars geek though. I mean, Harry Potter's fine.
So I put myself in a similar boat. I did not watch. I made it to the second or third movie whenever they go into the forest with all the spiders. And you and I don't know each other very well, but here's strap in for this. I don't like spiders. I don't like spiders so much that I left the movie theater when they went to the Enchanted Forest thing the second time, and the spiders turn around to eat them. I'm like, yep, that's it, I'm out. Then I took a 15-year hiatus away from the entire franchise and finally watched all of them again while I'm big and grown and not scared of spiders. I covered my eyes throughout the entirety of the last part of that movie. And I finally watched all of them during COVID. And when Dobby, the scene's coming up, my wife also loves Harry Potter. Scene's coming up where Dobby's about to die. And she does this thing, when she knows something sad's coming, she's kind of starts to slowly cover her face. And so she's sitting on the couch and she starts just slowly, and I was like, okay. Hermione's about to bite it here. And then when it's Dobby, though, it's like, oh, that could have been way worse. It's just Dobby. I felt bad, but I was expecting Ron to bite it, or Hermione was gonna tragically die. It ended up just being the animated.
It's just Dobby.
CGI elf. I was like,
just Dobby.
All right.
Dagger with that one.
All right, Slytherin, get out of here, man.
I get that makes me heartless.
It's just a house elf. What are you so sad about?
Rena, my wife, knew we were doing this tonight, and she saw my preliminary list, and she was like, "Oh yeah, Dobby. Dobby's got to be a high." I had Dobby a lot lower on the list, and then I was like, "Oh, all right." So I moved Dobby up because I was like, "Well." I mean, she clearly was, obviously Dobby. Dobby's a great. I was like, oh yeah.
Maybe just because he's a CGI character that was just like, oh, this. I mean,
it is sad. I left it blank on my list. I wrote the actor's name. I have no idea who plays Dobby, so that was just blank on my list. I was like, whatever that is. But that is a terribly sad scene, and everybody that's big Potter fans out there, which we know who you are, you were sad about it. We know. Sure. We get it.
Yeah,
there's a whole world out there that's super sad about this moment. So we threw you a bone. We put it on the list.
No. Let's be clear here. This is a very sad death. All right, because Dobby is with Harry Potter. Harry Potter saves Dobby, right, from a life of slavery, basically, and then Dobby comes and saves him in return and calls him Dobby's Harry's friend. And so
I gotta
sweet.
Be honest.
And then he dies in his arms. And then, but to your point, the thing that took me out of it a little bit was that he is a CGI character forever. And then when he dies in his arms, he's just a real puppet.
Yeah.
That he's holding. And it's why is he so much more
messed
real?
Up looking. Can we just say that? I mean, look, I'm just put it out there on the deal.
Wow.
That is one messed up looking creature.
I didn't know. Dang, I didn't know we had some.
That is not the way.
Not really the kind of message we like to have here on the podcast. You deserve.
That is not the kind of character I saw them doing in the book, right? I mean, if you guys imagined House Elves looking like that, I mean, that is he's creepy looking at the end. That's all I'm saying. He's creepy looking, and he looks up at Harry. Somebody explain this to me, by the way, because other house elves talk in perfect English. Okay, they talk and they can form sentences. And Dobby, no, hear me out. Dobby can't get this thing down, man. And so, look, no, I'm serious. He's at the end, and he's sitting there, and he's in Harry's arms, and he's converting into a doll instead of CGI. And he looks up and he says, Dobby is happy to be with his friends, and then he just dies. And you're like,
that was amazing.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Thank you. But you're
Toby
like,
Jones, the amazing Toby Jones, everybody.
That was Toby Jones.
Toby Jones. Is that who it is?
Wow.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out, man. Good job. I mean,
wow.
I didn't know that you were a dead ringer for Toby Jones. You can do his voice immaculate. That was so good. There's some money you could make on this on the side, I think.
Well, J.K. Rowling takes some notes. Apparently, make your house elves look more like golden retrievers, and they might be more impactful deaths for Alan. Who knows?
That line was worth doing over again.
That's very true. Yep.
Yeah. So number 3, apparently, Dobby. Number 2 on the list of saddest movie deaths. Another Road to Perdition. That's how you know we care about it, not the podcast you deserve. This is what it feels like, Kyle, when I bring guests on. They're on my side.
This is when we did the quotable movies, and I brought Dale on, and we both had Armageddon and A Knight's Tale way up there. This is what this feels like. Shoes on the other foot.
This is what it feels
I will do the gracious thing, which is what you did not do for me last time, and I will sit and I will listen.
Oh,
thank you.
I like it.
Thank you. Road to Perdition, as we talked about earlier, Tom Hanks, all the characters. Michael Sullivan. Michael Sullivan is Tom Hanks's character, and after a full movie of losing his wife, losing one of his sons, having to kill his father figure, going on the run with his other son, keeping him alive, promising him a future, surviving all these different things, including Daniel Craig and a crazy-ass Jude Law who's out to murder him and take a picture of his body, he finally makes it to a city called Perdition. And he's watching his son play on the beach with a dog, and waves are lapping in the background, and it's just the most peaceful, tranquil moment ever of the film. And they finally made it to paradise. And then all of a sudden, Tom Hanks gets shot twice in the back by a crazy-ass Jude Law, who then takes a picture of his dying body. Because
Yeah, I would tell you. Yeah. And again, this is another one of those things, shout out, this should have won, Best Picture, this should have been Best Director. Because Best Cinematography, because I think that this scene is shot so well. It's shot from outside. So you're outside the window, you're looking back, and you can see in the reflection of the window Tom Hanks' son playing, right? So you see that,
and all the waves, and
he's so happy, and it's super quiet. To Drew's point earlier, the music has gone really quiet. It's super quiet. You're not thinking anything at all, and then all of a sudden, blood splatter just comes up onto the glass because Jude Law, like a little bitch, rolled in and shot someone in the back. And I literally, I know I did this. I went, no, I said it, and I'm like, what? And it was terrible, super sad. I felt, and then again, Jude does some pretty messed up stuff there and takes some photos. And so anyway, but that's super. That one hurt.
And not only is it sad because he dies, right? As he feels like he's gotten to the end, right, and gotten to safety, but then in his dying moments, his son comes into the room and has a gun pointed at Jude Law, the man who just killed his father. And the reason they're in this circumstance is because that son watched his dad kill somebody earlier in the movie, right? And his dad is trying to save him basically from that life. Yep. And the son is sitting there with the gun in his hands, pointing it at Jude Law. And with his dying breaths, Tom Hanks actually kills Jude Law instead.
Yep.
Save it. And then the son says, I couldn't do it. And he goes, I know. And the son sits there and cradles his head as his father dies in his hands. That is the most impactful thing, because not only does he die, but he dies saving his son. He dies carrying his son all the way through the movie. This is every Academy Award. I hate Chicago forever.
I do too. It's the greatest travesty of all time, and it was such a cop out that the Academy was like, well, we got to go with Chicago. It's a musical thing, and this is what it is terrible. This is such a great movie, and I
that Richard Gere,
Michael gets saved, his soul gets saved, but Michael's now left in a house with 2 dead dudes. So this thing did not end well.
I don't know how you get out of that.
That's a great point.
Just a boy and his dog and 2 dead guys. We all know that
a boy
story.
and a dog and 2 dead dudes. Yeah, they don't like give you any closure on that either.
Surprisingly, a movie where the dog survives to the end, but he's also going to die too. So Michael's going to have to deal with that at some point. So
get
your
peanut butter
life
ready,
is hard, Michael.
Strap in, kid. Yeah.
And number 1 on the Not the Podcast You Deserve, Saddest Deaths in Cinema is Ellie from Up.
Deserving of the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
Is this the only character on our list that has 0 lines of dialogue and still made everybody cry upon the death?
Well, no, the dogs also had very few lines. So
Good point. I walked right into that one. Kudos to you for picking that low-hanging fruit and throwing it at me.
Wilson doesn't say much.
He also didn't make the list.
He also didn't make the list.
But no, this one is really impactful. And to your point, Kyle, Ellie is not a predominant character in the movie as far as screen time goes. She's definitely felt throughout the movie because she is the driving force behind it. But the 5 or 10 minute or whatever montage you watch of her and her husband meeting, falling in love, getting married, and living their life together is the most touching, beautiful thing. And then when she dies, you feel that so hard. Like, I remember tearing up and crying for the first time in the movie theater, and I have a hard time not kind of tearing up anytime I think about it because it's like a love like that.
Yeah. Their final adventure, the big adventure they were going to go on together. That's heartbreaking. I remember going to see this movie with a group of friends. Drew, we might have been there together. I don't know. I remember about 8 minutes into the movie, I was like, what are we watching? What is this? Where's the kid with the balloons and the ostrich and stuff? Why am I crying? Why are there old people? What's happening? Just was not ready for it at all. Was not prepared for what was about to happen.
It's terribly sad. We watch it here at the Crawford household. It makes it for the 3-year-olds, but we're all crying. I mean, we just kind of stand behind it. So my daughter Penny's not like, what's going on, Dad? I'm over here just like trying to get it to go away. It's terribly sad. It is
cutting onions in here again.
I know. I'm
Keep
sitting there
doing it when Up is on.
It's a good thing this is a podcast and y'all aren't watching the video because I'm over here like having a hard time.
Yeah,
it's one thing that did we not tell you this is a video podcast?
You did. You did at the beginning. Okay. Yeah. That's
it is gonna
get my Dobby doll out here in a second.
The interesting thing about it is that they could basically just put up a picture, like a black and white picture of the 2 of them on the mantle and be like, that was my wife, Ellie. And we kind of get the gist of it. We're like, oh, the man's sad. But they took it a step farther and they're like, we're going to show you all of it. The highs, the lows, the ups and downs, how much they truly loved each other. And we're going to jam pack that into about 3.5 minutes. So strap in. And you're like, oh my gosh.
With 0 dialogue, they go through them wanting to go on a big adventure together, but they don't have the money. They're saving up, and they go through infertility, and then they still kind of don't have the money to do what they want to do. Then they both get sick and old, and she can't make it up the hill. It's like, what? Time out, Disney. What are you doing? What are you guys doing? Let's go back to some fun stuff like Mufasa falling off a cliff and being stampeded to death, I guess Disney's always kind of had that up their sleeve. I digress.
It almost felt like Pixar made a short that they usually do at the beginning of their movies, and they're like, what if we made the short incredibly sad, and then we made it about the movie?
Exactly, yes.
They're like, wow, I love the way you think, Jenkins. Don't hide that talent.
Oh, and then at the very end, that's funny. At the very end of the movie, when he finds the book again because he's like throwing stuff out of the house to make it float or whatever, and he finds the book and he sees like the hidden page in the back that he never opened before. It was like my adventure, and it was all pictures of them together. I was like, you're gonna make me cry twice? over the same animated character that I've never met or heard a word of dialogue from. Great, thanks guys. Yeah, Ellie deserves to be
the animated movies can get you though. I mean, it really can. I mean, the other day, my father-in-law was in town, and we put Frozen or Frozen 2. I don't know. It was something, and I looked over, and the dude's sniffling towards the end of it. You know, he's getting called outside. And my wife goes, "Really, Dad?" He's like, "What?" You know, he's like, you know what I mean? But like, they can get you. Okay, they can. You know, they can pull you outside.
Disney. It's not about just saving the hero and falling in love anymore. It's about making you sad. They have to cut out your old dead heart first before they can put a new Disney heart inside of it. And that's the moral of the story.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
You think that's in a poster somewhere in Disney HQ?
Cut out their dead heart. And put some Mickey Mouse ears in it.
These are the pillars. This is what we do, people.
You knew what you signed up for. You thought you came here for Star Wars. You came here for Dobby and Ellie. That's what you came here for.
Wow. Alan, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up the list in our time together?
I will say two things real fast. Number one, last time I cried in a movie. So the last time I cried at a movie, and it was involving a death. I'm going to shock a lot of listeners here. It was Tom Hanks, and it was. I know.
I haven't heard of him.
It was actually Otto Anderson in A Man Called Otto, which is based off of a Frederick Bachman book called A Man Called Ove. Apparently, in this country, Ove is too Norwegian or something, so we called him Otto. Anyway, movie's great. If you don't get into that character, and the family that he kind of falls in love with and helps, because he's an old man and grumpy and stuff, man, that's tough. His death in that movie, super tough. I was bawling. There were 6 couples in this big old movie theater, and my wife and I are sitting there, and the movie ends, and then like nobody's getting up because we're all like, we're all just trying to wipe it away or whatever. Great movie, super cathartic. Last time I cried, that was the movie. So again, shout out to Tom on that one. And then last but not least, gotta say, friend of the pod, gotta say, shame on you, Disney, for killing Harrison Ford's character of Han Solo in the worst possible way. Shame on you. It doesn't make sad deaths, and the writing was sad. It was terrible. That's an awful scene, and it's such an iconic character. I get it. Harrison didn't want to do any more movies, and he has that power. But come on, could you have killed him in a more cool way for those who have been following after a while? So shame to Disney. That's my final plug.
I love it. Drew, when's the last time you cried in a movie?
The last time I saw Fired Up.
That's an ender.
What scene gets you to cry?
Oh, what scene doesn't get you to cry?
When he's picking between the blonde and the brunette and the redhead, that one really gets me.
That one. I would like that one.
I would like that one, please.
Why delay the inevitable?
That's it.